Tomorrow 18-hour special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. This is the only daily MSME platform in the country, a show where you can voice your concerns and get answers to all your queries directly from our team of experts. We understand the issues that you, the MSME entrepreneur, face, and this show aims to bring you the most relevant and the most updated information on everything related to your businesses. Samriti Grover caught up with Make My Trip for this year-end special. Take a listen.
Thank you, Rajesh, for joining us on Leaders of Tomorrow. So, everybody knows Make My Trip entered the online travel business about 16 years ago, and it's a long time.
Yeah.
So, how has the market changed since your entry?
No, absolutely. It's been over a decade. And market actually has changed a lot. And let me tell you how. I mean, actually every aspect of our business has changed phenomenally, and the overall market has changed phenomenally. So it was an internet business we entered way back in 2000. And frankly, from 2000 to 2005, nothing much was happening. Actually, we somehow survived. Even the market was not really, we thought we were early, ahead of time. The model was there, globally the model was there. It was essentially an online travel agency model. But the internet ecosystem had not really evolved at that point in time. The bandwidth was not there, the payment gateway systems were not there, and so on. But from 2005 onwards, it started evolving. So if you really now see overall internet ecosystem, the internet ecosystem overall has evolved from, just I guess 20 million internet users at that point in time to now 300 plus internet users today, are phenomenal. And in the last 5 years, it has actually been more than doubled. And it has reached to a stage where the device that was required, that was actually used at that point in time for internet access, used to be desktop, or it evolved into laptops and stuff like that, but now it's smartphone. So look at the evolvement that has happened in the overall interest. So the device preference has completely changed. So that's like a big evolvement that has happened. Then the bandwidth has completely changed. We used to have narrow band, very low broadband, if you will, and therefore we were never able to move actually our hotels business online for the longest time. And that has evolved into now, starting with 2G, 3G, and 4G. So it's like fourth generation of telecom bandwidth, which is fundamentally has changed the game for internet and e-commerce in India. When you look at the travel business, overall travel business has also evolved quite a bit in terms of actually change in the consumer behavior. So if you look at consumer behavior back then, frankly, there used to be only, one holiday, maybe at a max, at max 2 holidays in a year.
That too domestic, I guess.
That too domestic, and also summer vacations, winter vacations kind of linked with that. Which is, and then that behavior has now changed, and obviously it has to do with overall evolvement of the economy, disposable income going up. A lot of people have started going abroad. Outbound has picked up quite a bit now. So total about now 3.5, 4 holidays in a year, which is phenomenal. So the consumer behavior has also changed. So overall travel market has grown significantly. New airports have come in, new hotels have come in. So it's, if you really see the entire journey for the last, say, 15, 16 years, it has really grown and evolved quite a bit.
So, everybody obviously talks about the success story of Make My Trip, but there is a struggle involved, in the initial years that you're talking about. So, what made you actually, you and Deep, enter the online travel business? And, because there was a risk, and there's always a risk involved in anything new that you're starting up. But what was that one driver that made you believe that, yes, this is perhaps the future and it's going to work?
Yeah, sure. No, it was a lot of struggle, and there's no question about it. And we walked into it knowing that there will be struggles, because when you set up a startup, it's not going to be hunky-dory from the word go. So I think so when Deep thought about this idea, it was actually Deep's idea. He was working before setting up Make My Trip with GE, and he had enough 10 years corporate experience. Actually, it was very different from like people straight out of the school or straight out of the college, they start up. It was that they set up a startup. It wasn't like that. So so there was a corporate experience behind, and also a lot more study about the overall model that we were going to get into. I think that was all done before. The trouble was that like I mentioned earlier, we were ahead of time. So internet was not really ready. So the trouble actually started with that. And from 2000 to 2005, it was actually a lot of hardship. including actually when we started in 2000, and I joined him in late 2000. So that is, I was part of the founding team, and that's how I became co-founder. But he was the one who actually set it up, and then I joined, and a couple of other co-founders joined at that point in time. But guess what happened in that year? We had 9/11, we had SARS. Whatever we could have potentially would have thought that would go wrong went wrong in that year. So it was obviously not like a great beginning, but thankfully we had US India, non-resident Indians business coming into India, non-resident Indians coming into India. That was a business which is now a legacy business, just about 2-3 percentage points of our total business. That kind of stayed us afloat. We actually had couple of $1 million coming in from eVentures at that point in time, and they actually shut their shop as well. So it was quite a bit of hardship at that point in time. We survived on angel funding. We survived on whatever small amounts that we could raise at that point in time, and somehow managed. So yes, it was a lot of hardships, as you could potentially imagine for a startup, but it was a lot of fun as well, because so we were clear that the model that we had thought about was definitely going to happen. It could well be ahead of time, but the time will definitely come that it'll definitely kind of grow in India. So, and luckily from our point, and the conviction also was, of course, execution has to be done on the ground in India, and customized to the Indian customers' requirements, etc. But globally, this model had worked. So from that point of view, it wasn't really a new model. And and at that point in time, Expedia and a lot of the global OTAs were already there. Travelocity, Orbitz, Expedia were already there. So I guess it was just a matter of right timing and sticking around, and finally that happened in September 2005.
On Leaders of Tomorrow, we primarily cater to a lot of MSMEs and entrepreneurs and startups. And, a lot of time when we speak to them, the venture that they've kind of entered is mostly ahead of time. So, and, there is that risk of not picking up, your venture not picking up in the first initial years, which also demotivates you in a lot of sense. So what advice would you like to give to our viewers, when they're at it, and they should not really give up on their idea?
So I think it's a fair question, and I definitely think that they should not give up, and it will happen. That you sometimes could be ahead of time and all of that. So what you need to do is to actually, before you set it up, frankly, not think that it is going to be, I am going to give it a shot for a year, and if it doesn't work, then I'm going to go back to what I was doing. I don't think that works. I think when you jump into it, you can think through before you actually jumping into it. You can think through and decide, listen, corporate career is probably the right path for me. That's fair. That's fine, because not everyone would want to get into startup, setting up their own business and all that, because it's a different setup. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to pull it off, and there is a good chance that you might not actually succeed. So therefore, there's a lot of risk involved, right? So you can choose, but once you have chosen that, I don't think then you should think that you're going to go back so easily. And I'll tell you what also tends to happen is that in many times, and you would have seen probably in many startups, I definitely have seen in many new young age startups, that they start with an idea, and they do the experiment, they try to do the proof of concept, they realize that it is not working. And then some of them actually start wondering what to do, but then smart folks actually immediately pivot. And they said, listen, let's pivot and move on to the next one, but don't give up an idea of then carrying on with the startup setup, rather than just saying, listen, it's not working out, 6 months, 1 year, let's give it a shot and go back. So I think that probably would be the right advice.
So if I had to ask you, what was that one game-changing moment in the journey of Make My Trip that actually turned the table? What would that be? Like, would it be influx of like the low-cost carriers that came in that time, internet penetration?
Yeah, there's more than one for sure. But when we took off in September 2005, when we relaunched in India, the Indian website, first we launched in 2000, and we suddenly realized nothing was happening, no traction whatsoever, so no point spending in a lot of marketing dollars, etc. But two things happened in September 2005. One, you pointed out, so low-cost carriers opened up, that clearly opened up the sky. Because internet was the medium. We were an online travel company, but at the end of the day, we were in travel. So the travel infra and the travel ecosystem also had to evolve. So that was definitely one. The other thing that actually also happened at that point in time was IRCTC. So IRCTC launched their portal, and they were distributing on their own for the longest time actually, and then they were the only portal. What it did at that point in time, these two events, was that people started, one that low-cost carriers, so the consumer behavior changed to start booking flights more than ever before, but also more importantly from an internet adoption standpoint, that people started using more and more internet, because IRCTC online rail booking, the alternative was extremely painful. Going to the railway station and actually booking was the alternative, and that was really, really painful. And it provided a lot of IRCTC online booking system, provided a lot of convenience. So I think these were the two big ones. And then I'll tell you the third one actually also, and believe it or not, at that point in time when we were booking online flight bookings, the tickets used to be paper tickets. So we used to actually courier a lot of paper tickets because there was no electronic ticket. So e-ticket was again another game-changing event that happened. So likewise, there are plenty of them. The recent times, I would actually call smartphone movement is actually definitely a game-changing event as well. That is technology evolvement. Smartphone penetration, evolvement, cheaper smartphones that are available, combined with the fact that the telecom bandwidth improved, because that fundamentally actually changed the game for e-commerce in the recent times.
We're bringing you tips and insights from Make My Trip. Do stay tuned. We'll take a quick break and come back with much more on the other side. Welcome back. You're with us here in MSME Dialogues, and tonight we're bringing you a special conversation with Make My Trip.
So a lot of people in this industry, say that hotels and packages that now people are offering for holidays are going to be the biggest revenue drivers. Mm-hmm. So what is the thought process behind that, and why is that?
Yeah, so I think it for two reasons. So one is the market reason, market opportunity, and the other one is the business reason. The market opportunity is because it's an underpenetrated market, and underpenetrated and fragmented. So the overall hotel landscape, if you really see, it's highly fragmented. So there are a lot of independent properties, not necessarily chain hotels, more like Europe than US. About 80% of our overall hotel, market would be independent properties. So when you think about independent properties opportunity, then you think that independent properties, they may not have wherewithal for them to be able to fill up rooms. So you can, as an intermediary, add a lot more value. So there's a huge opportunity, and the online penetration for hotel market is still about 15%, whereas flights market has moved online quite a bit already. So, so there's clear market opportunity there. So it's kind of a no-brainer in that sense, just from an online business standpoint. The business reason is that there is relatively high margin. Because you add more value relatively to air business. Air business is pretty much like a commodity. You don't really have to. Basically you are providing a system which is enabling people to book online. So that's a lot of convenience, choice, and transparency. Yes, that's a lot of value. But at the end of the day, the flights, and there are few airlines, and it's only about 8-9 airlines domestically, internationally few airlines. But whereas you have 100,000 properties around. Right, so you end up providing more value. You have the, it gives you an opportunity to provide more value for the hotels, and therefore margin would be relatively higher than air business. So I guess these are the two big reasons.
So since you said that the travel online business, which includes everything, is highly fragmented in India currently. So is that a challenge or perhaps a boon for smaller players?
Actually, I won't say it's a challenge for the smaller players, because it depends how you want to look at it. Because actually, by definition, if the market is fragmented, which means there are actually quite a few small players, and they can have their own special niche that they can operate in various parts of the country. India is a huge country. Not necessarily one particular medium would be able to cater to the demand across the board. It doesn't happen so easily, especially in a country like India. It's very difficult. So I think it's an opportunity for smaller players. So if they start thinking about they feel insecure, I don't think they need to feel insecure. What they need to do rather is to actually see what is the benefit of the technology that they could potentially look at, and look at maybe affiliate partnerships with the big players, just from a technology enabled standpoint. I'll give you a couple of examples. There are players in the marketplace today who are actually because they have content of all kinds, of all products, whether it is LCCs or the full service carriers or the hotels or the international hotels. For a small player, it's very difficult to reach out to every hotel and do a contract. So if you have to serve the customer's need, you need all of that content, you need all of that inventory. So what is that you need to do is you can actually take it from, do the partnership, take the content from the big players and then serve the customer. So it becomes B2B2C kind of an opportunity for them. So actually it could work to their advantage.
But if consolidation is the way forward in an industry like this, will the MSME players be on the losing end then in some ways?
I actually don't think so. I'll tell you why. Because consolidation has to be seen in the context of the total size of the market. So total size of the travel market today is 50 billion. 50 billion US is the total travel market size, which is domestic, outbound, all inclusive, right? All travel products and so on and so forth. I think the important point is that they need to also evolve into to see technology can disrupt a bit their business, like it has done it for many businesses. So they need to adapt into new technologies, think of different business model, and think of affiliate partnerships for them to be able to survive.
So, we get a lot of queries on Leaders of Tomorrow regarding raising funds, and that's primarily, I think, the first concern that entrepreneurs have when they're even starting up or even in the middle of their, cycle of their entrepreneurial journey. So, what advice would you have for them that how can they actually look at raising funds? Because it's really a concern these days.
Yeah, no, it is a concern, but I'll tell you, there's also good news. And the good news is that if I compare now 15 years back situation with what the situation is today, including, and people are saying in the last year, the capital squeeze has happened. Year before last was, free-flowing capital, if you will, for a lack of a better word. But the situation overall is actually pretty good. So there is capital available, there is ecosystem available. It wasn't that evolved ecosystem before. So there are all kinds of private equity funds, the VCs and the seed funds and the big private equity funds, and even actually in some of the companies, the funds that would normally invest in publicly listed companies have also started investing in private equity. So there is tremendous amount of capital that is available for the right people, for the right ideas, for the right team.
So do you think the implementation of GST going on that front now will be a game changer in this industry?
So I am not like 100% hopeful that the product that will come out will be, everybody would be happy with that. That's not going to happen. But it's a great step in the right direction, including our industry. So I think we should just continue on this path. We should make sure whatever it takes to push it through, implement it. You learn few things, and then you should be open to make amendments, and then it'll eventually fall in place, because such a big change is not going to be right first time, no matter what you do.
You've stuck to Make My Trip, from its inception till now. So a lot of people that, we talk to who are, in the MSME space have a huge problem of talent retention and talent acquisition, of course. Even the players who have been with them from the beginning, the people who have been with them from the beginning, leave the company in some part or in some stage of the journey. Right. So what can one do at that level as an MSME to retain talent?
No, it's a great question, and it happens. And a lot of people will come and say that, listen, this is one of the problems that we are grappling with, and how do we make sure that we attract as well as retain good quality talent. And I think it is to do with, and maybe we had the advantage and Deep had the advantage of corporate experience. Actually, all the co-founders had the advantage of some corporate experience behind them. And you had been, which means that you've been on the other side and you know how the organizations are kind of run or built, etc. So I think there is a bit of an organization building experience that kind of helps. But obviously, if you're a young startup entrepreneur, you would obviously not know that because you wouldn't have experienced it. But I think one of the things that actually really works well is that your mind is open. See, one of the problems that happens is, and it's very natural to happen, that since you are the owner of the company and you think, listen, the buck is going to stop at me, but then the authority is also with me. So you have to let go. You have to learn to let go. Then only you have to build trust in the organization. If you're hiring another senior person, then that person is coming, actually leaving a big, maybe mega corporate job, and he has to be, the environment that you're giving is very dynamic, very young, but at the same time it's not the same comfort zone, if you will. The person is coming out of the comfort zone. So all what you actually have to walk extra mile rather than just taking that person for granted, in terms of not necessarily pampering the person, but very important is to build trust, give openness, give empowerment, and you visibly should let go.
So what are the key big trends that we can look out for in the online travel industry in the years to come?
As far as travel or online travel is concerned, bunch of things actually. The latest trend is also, people started thinking about or leveraging social network quite a bit. So there is a lot of the feedback that people have started relying on before they actually book, which is user-generated content. So basically just connecting with your friends and families over the social network and getting the feedback before you actually take any kind of decision. So people are actually so much connected now on WhatsApp, all the social media apps, that they are leveraging that kind of network quite well as well. I think the other thing which we recently launched, which is, I would say it's a new thing, but it's a cultural thing, it'll evolve in India, is also a trend of people starting to actually book the alternative accommodation, not necessarily the organized hotel, which is essentially a secondary home or a villa, which is not necessarily a villa, and people going in groups and actually staying in there. We launched a new brand called Right Stay, which was focusing on alternative accommodations. It's like an Airbnb. Globally, it has picked up quite a bit as well. So consumers are thinking about another viable option. Various type of consumers, they're thinking it's a viable option or it's a value for money option. That is one kind of trend, and convenient. And two, that if you are in a group, it's okay if you actually take a full villa with like 4 bedrooms and then you can stay together and have fun, kind of a thing. So I think that's also an emerging trend that is happening.
If you're an entrepreneur who's in the travel space, we do hope that you've been able to get some takeaways from this conversation with Make My Trip. Do remember, if you are a business that wants to be featured here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, you can write into us at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can tweet at me personally at Sunanda_J. You can reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT, or call us on that number you see flashing on your screen. We promise to have all your queries answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.